nobody cares. Focus on your life. There is a truth that most of us must face, sooner or later. Nobody really cares. They don't care how tired you are, how hard you've tried, or how much potential you think you have. The world runs on its own terms, and the stories of their own lives consume most people. It sounds harsh, even cold, but if you look deeper, it is one of the most liberating truths. When you stop expecting others to care, you finally begin taking real responsibility for your life. I remember those early days of my youth. I often talked about my dreams, about big plans, hoping someone would notice and acknowledge them. But in return, there was mostly silence, or a few polite words to brush it off. At the time, I felt hurt, thinking I was abandoned. But the longer I lived, the more I realized one thing. No one is truly obligated to care about your dreams except you. That indifference was the greatest gift because it forced me to stop waiting for recognition and act for myself. Stoic philosophy, thousands of years ago, already saw this truth clearly. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Don't waste time debating what a good man should be. Be one." This isn't just a reminder. It's an arrow that pierces straight into our weakness, the craving for others to see us, to understand us, and to cheer us on. The Stoics believed that true worth does not come from the crowd's applause, but from living in line with virtue and your inner standards. If you've ever felt that your efforts were ignored or your silent sacrifices went unnoticed, take it as a turning point. Because the moment you stop waiting for the world to care is when you can direct all your energy into building inner strength. That is when you begin to taste freedom. In modern society, especially in America, we grow up surrounded by constant gazes, comparisons, and judgments. Human value is always measured in likes, titles, and compliments from social media to the workplace. And in the process, we forget the most basic truth. Real worth cannot be borrowed from others. It can only be forged through discipline, courage, and living true to the standards you set for yourself. That is why I want to take you on today's journey. 12 truths you must confront to build inner strength, to stop being swayed by outside eyes, and to focus on mastering your own life. Each truth is not a dry lesson, but rather a mirror held up to you, revealing the habits, fears, and illusions we cling to. At times, you'll feel uncomfortable, and at times, you'll want to push back. But that is a good sign, because only when you touch the wound do you have the chance to heal it. And remember, this is not a journey to impress anyone or seek agreement. It is a journey for you to learn how to walk on your own feet, even if the world around you is silent, even if no one is cheering. True freedom is not found in being seen, but in standing firm in the dark and remaining loyal to your values. So let us begin the first truth, the foundation for everything that will follow. Truth 1. Your value does not depend on applause. Ask yourself a simple question. If no one praised you, if there was no applause for what you did, would you still keep doing it? This is a difficult question, because it forces us to face the reality that much of what we do every day is driven by the desire to be acknowledged. Think about social media. You post a picture, a thought, and almost immediately you check if anyone liked it, if anyone commented. Each notification feels like a small dose of medicine that makes you feel good. But that feeling doesn't last, and soon you need more likes and praise to fill the emptiness inside. That is the dangerous trap of external validation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations that the crowd can cheer you today and forget you tomorrow. Applause never lasts because it depends on other people's moods, whims, and interests. If you build your self-worth on that foundation, your life will always be shaken by the unpredictable shifts of others. On the other hand, Stoic philosophy points out that actual value lies in whether you live with virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. No one can take away these things because they belong to you. When you choose to do what is right, even when no one is watching, when you keep promises to yourself, even when no one reminds you, when you act according to principle rather than following the crowd, you are building your real value. I once met an American working man, someone who did ordinary labor. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he wasn't praised, but every day he woke up on time, cared for his family, kept promises to his children, and never ran from responsibility. He said something I will never forget. "I don't need anyone to clap for me. I must see a man I respect when I look in the mirror." That is the clearest picture of the strength of inner value. Imagine the sun. It never asks for permission to rise or wait for recognition. It simply shines, and the whole world is illuminated by its persistence. You are the same. Your worth does not need applause to be real. It exists in how you live, in every choice, in every small act of integrity you do, even when no one notices. From today, when you feel overlooked or underappreciated, stop and ask yourself, am I proud of how I live today? If the answer is yes, then that is the applause you need. It doesn't come from the crowd, but echoes deep within you. This truth may be hard to accept at first, because we've lived off recognition for so long. But once you move beyond it, you will feel an extraordinary liberation. You will no longer be pulled up and down by praise or criticism. You will become steady and self-reliant, and your worth will not rest on others, but on yourself. And this is only the beginning. Because if your value doesn't come from applause, you must learn how to escape the most dangerous trap of modern life, dependence on recognition. And that is the second truth we are about to step into. Truth 2. External recognition is a trap. From childhood, we are conditioned to live by the eyes and smiles of others. A child feels joy when parents smile in approval, sadness when they frown. As we grow, grades, teachers' compliments, the nod of a colleague, a boss, or the number of likes on social media gradually become the yardstick for self-worth. Few realize that this is a sweet but dangerous trap that makes us live a life that is no longer ours. Look back for a moment. How often have you done something not because you wanted to, but feared what others might think? How often have you worn an outfit, spoken a line, or chosen a job to please others? We call it living properly, but it is trading our freedom for a temporary sense of safety bought from outside approval. Epictetus once warned, "If you want to make progress, be prepared to be thought foolish by others." At first, the statement sounds harsh, but it is a simple truth. The majority rarely applauds the path of actual growth. It is often rough, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable for others to watch. You will never dare to take a real step forward if you constantly chase consensus. Recognition works like a short-term stimulant. When you receive it, you feel elated, you feel worthy. But the effect fades quickly. Then you must go back for more, like a person with an addiction needing the next dose. This cycle turns you into a slave of recognition. Without it, you feel empty. With it, you want even more, and little by little you drift away from your true self. Think of those who choose safety simply out of fear of ridicule. They keep a job they don't love because family or society tells them it is stable. They hold back their voice in a meeting to avoid judgment. They laugh it off and nod along while inside, choking. That is the price of living inside the trap of recognition. In contrast, those who live in the Stoic spirit understand this. Recognition is nothing more than a variable outside your control. Others may praise, others may criticize, but they cannot define your true character. Only you can know whether your actions align with what is right, whether they align with your inner values. And when you hold on to that anchor, praise or criticism becomes as light as a passing breeze. One day, you will realize that no one cares about you as much as you imagine. Everyone is busy with their own story. Those looks, those words, they come and go and vanish. If you keep altering your path because of them, it is like letting a passing wind decide the course of your entire life. Escaping the trap of recognition does not mean becoming indifferent to the world. It simply means living truthfully, choosing action based on values, not on the crowd's expectations. That is what absolute freedom island. And to truly live free, we must learn to distinguish what is within our control and what is not. This is the next truth the Stoics have left for us. Truth 3. Focus on what you can control. How often have you been exhausted from worrying about things beyond your reach? A sudden rainstorm ruins your plans, a coworker talks behind your back, or the economy shifts, leaving you anxious for a week. If we think hard enough and worry long enough, the situation will somehow change. But the truth is the opposite. The more we worry, the more drained we become, while reality doesn't move an inch. The Stoics divided life into two categories: what we can control and what we cannot. Epictetus stated it clearly. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. Our attitudes, thoughts, choices, and actions are up to us. Weather, other people's moods, the market, luck, all fall outside our control. The problem is, most of the time we place our hearts in the second category, and then we are pulled apart, dragged around, and robbed of peace. Picture yourself driving in a heavy storm. You cannot stop the rain but can turn on your lights, slow down, and keep a safe distance. That is the part you control. And if you do it well, you can keep moving, no matter how long the rain lasts. Life works the same way. You cannot force someone to love you, but you can learn to love yourself. You cannot control injustice, but you can respond calmly instead of angrily. Stoic practice is about shifting focus from the external to the internal. From why are they treating me this way? To how do I choose to treat them? From when will the opportunity come? To how am I preparing myself to be ready when it arrives? From I wish this hadn't happened to what can I learn? That is how you turn adversity into a chance for growth. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is within your power, act. If not, accept it as fate." This is not resignation, but a form of strength. Instead of wasting energy on what cannot change, you channel it into the part you truly control. And it is this focus that makes you stronger, more proactive, and less shaken. When applied, you will notice yourself calmer, even in everyday situations. Traffic jams no longer make you furious. A criticism no longer crushes you. A cancelled plan no longer costs you sleep. You realize that events are just events. The emotion you choose defines the experience, and that choice is always in your hands. To focus on what you can control, ask yourself whenever unease rises, is this within my hands? If the answer is no, let it go. If it is yes, act immediately. This compass can guide you in every circumstance, from minor inconveniences to significant crises. When you live this way, you feel a new kind of freedom. Not freedom because everything works out, but freedom in the middle of the storm. Because at that moment, you know you always have solid ground to stand on, no matter how the world shifts. And once you stand firm on your own ground, you will clearly see another truth. Not the crowd, not society, but your inner standards are the real compass for your life. Truth 4. Live by inner standards, not by the crowd. How often have you found yourself doing something just because everyone else does it? Buying something unnecessary because your friends showed it off, laughing along in gossip even though you didn't like it, or choosing a job simply because it was stable as people expected. These moments may seem small, but repeated over time, they chip away at your true self, until one day you wake up asking, "Who am I really living for?" The Stoics believe the crowd is constantly changing, like the wind. What they cheer for today, they may mock tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The crowd's applause is a weak foundation, because the crowd does not know you or understand your fears, hopes, or the unique path you must walk. If you live by their standards, you will forever chase a shadow you can never catch." Living by inner standards means choosing a steady compass. It is your value system, the principles you believe in, and your willingness to stand by, even when everyone else is walking in the opposite direction. It is like the magnetic needle of a compass. It always points north, no matter how storms rage or winds shift outside. When you have that compass, you are no longer shaken by praise or criticism, but you know clearly what to do so that you do not betray yourself. In reality, this is not easy. Sometimes, standing up for your personal values means accepting loneliness, like when you refuse to join in a cruel joke with the group, or when you speak the truth while everyone else chooses silence. But those moments precisely forge real strength, because you learn how to stand firm on your own, instead of only being strong when the crowd is behind you. Picture this. You walk into a room. If you live through the eyes of others, you immediately scan to see who is watching and who is judging. But if you live by inner standards, you enter with calm presence. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't need to attract attention. Your presence alone is enough, because you know who you are and why you are there. A simple example: many people choose shortcuts at work because they quickly earn rewards. But if your inner standard is integrity, you decide to do things correctly, even if it takes more time. The results may not be immediately noticed, but your heart is at peace, and that peace itself is the greatest reward. The Stoics did not teach us to turn our backs on society. They taught us to listen, but not lose the compass. Advice may be considered, but the final decision must reflect your principles. That is how you maintain a life that does not sway, even when the world around you is noisy. When you live by inner standards, you will find yourself calmer. No more obsession with gain or loss. No more restlessness from comparison. Because you know, the only thing that truly matters is that tonight, when your head touches the pillow, you can look back at the day and say, "Today, I lived true to myself." And once you can do that, you step into a more profound truth. Praise or blame, acclaim or criticism, all of it is the same in the eyes of a steady mind. Truth 5. In Stoicism, praise and criticism hold equal weight. We usually think of praise as a reward and criticism as a blow. A compliment warms the heart, while a harsh remark can haunt the mind for days. But to the Stoics, both are the same. Nothing more than external sounds that cannot touch the core of who you are. Epictetus once said, "If you long for praise, you have placed your life in the hands of others." That statement flips how we view both praise and blame. Because if your joy or sorrow depends on someone else's voice, they hold the key to your mind. A frown can rob you of sleep. A compliment can make you arrogant. Both are dangerous. because they make you forget the most crucial question: am I living true to my values? Picture finishing a project. One person praises you and you feel brilliant and capable. Another criticizes and suddenly you doubt yourself. In truth, the project hasn't changed. The effort, care, and dedication you put in remain the same. What changes is only the echo from outside. You will never stand firm if you let your spirit sway with every echo. The Stoic chooses a different approach. Receive praise with humility and take criticism calmly. Both are simply information, not a verdict. If the criticism is valid, you correct yourself. If the praise is genuine, you keep working, not resting on laurels. And if both are false, you let them pass like the wind. In reality, both praise and criticism can become invisible cages. When addicted to praise, you easily live to please. When afraid of criticism, you shrink back and never dare to step forward. But you become freer when you understand that both are only external sounds. You work not to be praised or avoid blame, but to keep harmony between your actions and your inner values. Look at everyday life. An employee receives praise from a boss without awareness. He may feed his ego and start working for reputation instead of responsibility. A student mocked by classmates without resilience, he may give up halfway. But the Stoic knows this. The outcome is not in other people's voices, but in steadfastness to your chosen path. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in Meditations, "Praise is fleeting, criticism is fleeting. Both will sink into oblivion." Indeed, think back 5 years. Who praised and criticized you? You can hardly recall. But the actions you took and the discipline you endured remain etched into the character you carry today. When you learn to see praise and criticism as equal, you become the true master of your life. You no longer rush to defend yourself against criticism, nor lose yourself in the intoxication of praise. You keep your mind steady, and from that steadiness, true freedom begins. That freedom leads you to the next truth. Your value is not something granted, it is something you build daily through action and discipline. Truth 6. Your value is built by yourself. Many believe that human worth comes from external things. Titles, education, appearance, money, or relationships. Society often measures by these standards. However, Stoic philosophy reveals a different truth. Real value is neither granted nor acknowledged by others. It is something you forge yourself day by day through your choices and your discipline. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." His point was that value is not found in the time you are given, but in how you use it. A person who spends the day complaining, comparing, and craving praise will never create anything lasting. In contrast, a person who silently keeps promises to themselves, reads, trains, and works with responsibility, even if unnoticed, is laying solid bricks to build their own worth. Think of a blacksmith. Each strike of the hammer, each blast of the fire is not for applause, but to shape iron into a sword. You are the same. Every morning, you wake up on time. Every time you restrain your anger, and every honest choice you make when lying would be easier. These are your silent hammer strikes. No one may see them, but you do, and that awareness itself builds your value. The Stoics understood that value is a process, not a moment. You do not become valuable because of a single compliment or lose it because of a single criticism. Real value is a current, the accumulated result of hundreds, even thousands, of daily choices. It does not come from the spotlight, but from the dark places where you persist when no one is watching. In reality, everyone has moments of feeling useless, of not being good enough, beautiful enough, or successful enough. But through the Stoic lens, you see, that is the chance to begin training again. Value is not fixed. It is not a stamp you are born with, but a milestone you carve into your life. Each day is a chance to become a better version, and each small step today can become solid strength tomorrow. Remember, outsiders can destroy your reputation, money, and even your position, but no one can take away the character you have forged. A person of integrity keeps the respect of themselves even when the world turns away. A disciplined person keeps their inner pride even when others deny it. That is the kind of value that cannot be stolen, because it does not lie in anyone else's hands but your own. When you understand and build that value, you no longer live in fear of losing it or hunger for someone else to validate it. Instead, you focus on something greater, cultivating courage from within to face life calmly and with strength. And that brings us to the next truth. Real courage is not a roar, but a quiet, steady force that cannot be shaken. Truth 7. Inner courage is a quiet but unshakable strength. When we think of courage, most imagine heroic actions, standing before a crowd, facing danger, or daring to speak the truth in difficult times. But to the Stoics, courage does not have to be loud. It often happens in silence, in small but steady choices, and that quietness creates a strength that nothing can shake. Epictetus once said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus himself can conquer my will." True courage protects your will and principles, regardless of circumstance. The world may strip you of possessions, reputation, even loved ones. But if you keep your virtue and inner courage, you remain whole. Imagine a father who has lost his job. Financial pressure weighs heavily, and suspicious eyes from others surround him. Yet instead of giving up or complaining, he still wakes early, searches for work, keeps his promises to his family, and does not let bitterness cloud his mind. That is silent courage. No applause, no newspaper headlines, but that persistence is enough to turn hardship into the foundation for a stronger life. Stoic courage does not mean being fearless. On the contrary, it is about facing fear, acknowledging it, and still choosing to act according to principle. The courageous person is not one who never trembles, but continues to walk forward, even while the heart still shakes. Each time they do, they prove to themselves that fear does not control them. In daily life, courage often shows itself in simple forms. Daring to say no to an invitation that crosses your values, staying silent instead of joining in what is wrong, and choosing honesty even when lies would be easier. No one claps when you act with integrity, and no one records you when you keep disciplined. But in those very moments, you are affirming your character. Americans have a saying, "Courage is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." That is the Stoic spirit. Courage does not need a stage, nor bright lights, only you and your conscience. It is not a roar for others to hear, but a potent whisper within you, "I will not betray myself." When you cultivate this silent courage, you no longer depend on outside approval or opposition. You stand firm in the storm because you know you are living rightly, and in that moment, you become truly untouchable. This leads to the next truth. To stand firm against every upheaval, you must build an inner fortress, a citadel of the spirit that no external force can break. Truth 8. Build a strong inner fortress. When life outside becomes chaotic, everyone looks for shelter. Some run to a house, a bank account, or a relationship. However, the Stoics believed the safest refuge was not outside but within. They called it the inner fortress, a citadel of the spirit that no one can conquer except you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "People seek retreats in the country, by the sea, in the mountains, but you can retreat into yourself whenever you wish." He understood clearly, peace depends not on scenery, but on the mind. If your inner self is steady, you can still find stillness in the marketplace or in the storm, as if sitting on a mountaintop. Building an inner fortress is not the work of a day. It is like building a house. Each day, you place one brick of discipline, another of honesty, another of patience. Day by day, the walls grow thicker and stronger until eventually they can shield you from wind and rain, no matter how violent the storm. Picture a familiar moment. Someone insults you publicly in front of a crowd. Without an inner fortress, you explode, argue back, and carry home regret and anger. But if you have strong walls inside, you pause for a breath and remind yourself, "Their words do not define me. What I control is my reaction." Just like that, the storm rages outside, but within you, it is calm. Building an inner fortress also means preparing ahead for adversity. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining the hardships that might come in advance. Not to be pessimistic, but to be ready when they arrive. Like a soldier who trains before battle, you do not wait for the enemy to appear before grasping your sword. You train beforehand, you hold your ground, and you are not caught off guard when the challenge knocks. In modern American life, an inner fortress is more critical than ever. Daily, we are bombarded with negative news, online criticism, work, and financial pressures. We will be swept away in that endless current without a refuge inside. But once you build your fortress, no criticism or economic shift can knock you down. Do not mistake the inner fortress for coldness or numbness. It does not separate you from the world. It allows you to enter it with steadiness. You can love without dependency, lose without collapse, succeed without arrogance. That is the true strength of a mind that has been trained. And from that foundation, the Stoics taught us one more vital habit: daily self-reflection. Because no fortress maintains its strength unless it is examined and reinforced often. Truth 9. The power of daily self-reflection. In today's hurried pace, few ask, "How did I live today?" The Stoics were different. They treated daily reflection as the very breath of their philosophy. If we do not look back, we repeat old mistakes. If we do not face ourselves, we remain controlled by unconscious habits. Seneca once wrote, "Each night I examine my entire day and review my words and deeds." This was not self-punishment, but a way to stay awake and honest. Reflection helps you see which decisions came from reason, which actions sprang from anger, and which moments were in harmony with your values. Imagine this. After a long day, you sit silently, putting your phone aside. You recall the morning when you lost your temper with your child over something small. You realize you could have chosen patience instead. You think of the afternoon when a colleague asked for help and you offered it, and you feel proud of that moment. Each small memory becomes a mirror, showing you the truth of who you are. It is this habit that made the Stoics stronger with time, because progress does not come from giant leaps, but from minor corrections, repeated daily. Like an athlete who studies training videos to improve every detail, we also need to review our day's footage to learn and grow. Daily reflection also gives a precious gift: peace when you sleep. When you have faced yourself honestly, regrets and guilt no longer haunt you. You know where you went wrong, where you did well, and you have a plan for tomorrow. Because of that, your mind rests lighter, your sleep is more profound, and when you wake, you are ready to move forward. In modern American life, where people often escape truth through work, entertainment, or social media, this habit is more vital than ever. It acts like a pause button, allowing you to breathe, look back, and rebalance. You no longer let life slip by in a rush, but live with presence and awareness. The remarkable thing is that reflection does not turn you into someone harsh with yourself. On the contrary, it teaches you compassion. By seeing your flaws clearly, you learn to accept imperfection and grow from that acceptance. It is not self-blame, but self-responsibility. And that responsibility gives you strength. From the foundation of reflection, the Stoics lead us to another paradoxical truth. Fragility and vulnerability, when rightly understood, can become a profound form of strength. Truth 10. When vulnerability becomes strength. From childhood, we were taught to hide our fears, appear tough, and swallow our tears so that others would not see our weakness. But the truth is, the more we hide, the more fear controls us. The Stoics took the opposite approach. They accepted human fragility as an inevitable part of life. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not be ashamed of your weakness. Remember that it is proof that you are human." To him, vulnerability was not a crack, but an opening where light could enter. When you dare to admit fear, anxiety, or failure, you move past a false mask and draw closer to the truth. Think of a friend who openly shares that they are struggling with loneliness. At first, you might be surprised, but immediately after, your heart softens, you feel compassion, and a bond is formed. It is vulnerability that opens the door for two people to meet in honesty instead of through social roles and performances. The Stoics did not deny emotions. They observed them with reason. They knew that fear or sadness is not an enemy, but a signal that helps us understand ourselves more deeply. When you dare to face what you usually avoid, you are no longer ruled by it unconsciously. Instead, you turn it into a lesson, into new strength. In modern American life, many hide their insecurities behind layers of appearances. The perfect image on social media, the forced smile in the office, the words "I'm fine" while turmoil brews inside. But that hiding only leaves us more drained. A Stoic would advise, dare to look directly at your wounds, not to complain, but to truly understand yourself, and from that, to rise stronger. Vulnerability, once acknowledged, becomes the foundation of courage. Because courage is not the absence of fear, but walking forward despite fear. A soldier does not march into battle because he has lost all fear of death, but because he has something more important than fear to defend. You are the same. When you admit your anxiety but still act, you are far stronger than the one who hides behind false armor. And the strange thing is, when you become honest about your vulnerability, you are no longer easily hurt. Because no one can use what you have already accepted to harm you. The truth frees you. From then on, you no longer need to play the role of the strong one before the world. You actually become strong from within. This willingness to face vulnerability prepares you for another essential Stoic quality, the ability to transform suffering into fuel for growth. And that is what we will explore next. Truth 11. Turn pain into fuel. None of us can escape suffering. It may be betrayal from a friend, failure at work, or losing a loved one. Pain comes suddenly, pulling us into a spiral that sometimes makes us want to give up. But the Stoics taught that pain is not the end. It is the raw material for forging inner strength. Marcus Aurelius once said, The obstacle to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first glance, the line seems simple, but it carries the secret to turning adversity into opportunity. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the Stoic will ask, "What can I learn from this?" Think back to a time when you suffered a bitter failure. In that moment, you may have felt useless. But looking back years later, you see that failure taught you patience, wisdom, and resilience. Pain became the teacher, and you were the student who knew how to use the lesson. In modern society, people often avoid pain at all costs. When sad, they rush to social media for distraction. When lonely, they rush into fleeting relationships. When they fail, they rush to blame circumstances. But this avoidance only turns pain into chains instead of fuel. The Stoic chooses to face it, breathe deeply through suffering, and discover new strength. Picture an athlete who gets injured during training. That is real pain. Instead of quitting, he uses the recovery time to sharpen mental discipline so that when he returns, his body is more substantial and his will is doubled in strength. Your life is the same. Every fall is a hidden training ground where you forge resilience. Seneca once reminded, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." And one of the greatest wastes is turning pain into complaints instead of turning it into strength. When you choose action instead of complaint, you turn loss into progress, tears into lessons, and failure into a stepping stone. Pain, seen through Stoic eyes, is no longer an enemy. It is like fire. It can burn you down or forge you into steel. Everything depends on how you choose to stand before the flames. And once you have learned to turn suffering into fuel, you take one more step forward. You are no longer shaken by the reactions of others. Because your strength no longer comes from outside, it comes from the path you are walking. And that is the final truth. Truth 12. Focus on your path, not on other people's reactions. Throughout life, we often live unconsciously, as if performing on a stage, with family, friends, co-workers, and even strangers as the audience. Every step, every choice is shaped by the question, "What will they think of me?" Yet when you let the reactions of others dictate your actions, you have quietly abandoned your own path without even realizing it. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." At first, the statement sounds cold, but it carries a liberating truth. Because only when you accept being misunderstood can you truly live in line with your values. Think back to when you silenced your inner voice just to be accepted. Maybe you didn't choose the career you wanted, didn't dare to speak your genuine opinion, or stayed in toxic relationships out of fear of losing face. But the more you live that way, the more you lose yourself. The Stoic would ask, "Is this really within my control?" And they knew. Other people's reactions are not but the path you walk island. Picture life as a long journey on the road. Some will walk with you for a while, some will leave, and some will only stand at the side to judge. If you stop whenever someone points a finger, you will never reach your destination. The Stoics taught, "Do not let outside noise throw off the compass inside you." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Do not let the shouts of the crowd, whether praise or blame, disturb your mind. Because the noise of today may be applause, but tomorrow it may be criticism. Meanwhile, the path you choose, if it is grounded in reason, virtue, and integrity, will always remain firm." In modern life, this lesson matters even more. Social media makes it easy to be obsessed with likes, shares, or comments. A compliment can make your day, but a harsh word can steal your sleep. Yet, if you let your emotions rise and fall with those digital numbers, you are turning yourself into a puppet in other people's hands. The Stoic does not allow that. They know true worth lies in principled action, not the crowd's gaze. So ask yourself, if no one applauds or cheers, would you still be willing to keep walking this path? If the answer is yes, then you have found true freedom, because the most significant recognition does not come from others, but from the consistency between your actions and values. When you focus on your path, you will notice something strange. The outside noise begins to fade, and you hear your inner voice more clearly in that quiet. That voice tells you you are moving in the right direction, whether or not the world understands. And that is the moment you are not only strong, but free. We have just walked through 12 harsh, yet liberating truths. Each truth is like a mirror, forcing us to face what we usually avoid. The reality that self-worth does not lie in applause, that external recognition is a trap, that we only truly control our thoughts and actions, that inner standards matter more than the noise of the crowd, that praise and criticism are just two sides of the same coin, all the way to the final truth, that your path only truly becomes yours when you stop caring about other people's reactions. From my personal perspective, I see these truths not merely as ancient philosophy but as a compass for modern life. In a world where it feels as though every eye is watching you, where every action can be judged on social media, the building of an inner fortress is more necessary than ever. I once lived under the weight of others' eyes, constantly trying to meet every expectation. But the further I went, the more I realized that living like that was a betrayal of myself. The Stoics taught me that freedom only comes when we take responsibility for our choices and actions, regardless of what others think. The lesson for you and all of us is this: stop searching for external validation as a condition for happiness. No one can give you value that you have not already granted yourself. Instead of letting your emotions rise and fall with praise or blame, train yourself to grow steadily from within. Begin with small actions. Keep promises to yourself. Live by the values you believe in. Pause before reacting. Dedicate time each day to reflection. These small steps are the bricks that build a life of freedom, a life where you can hold your head high without needing anyone to applaud. When you truly absorb these 12 truths, you will realize that no one cares as much as you imagine. And that is not bad news. It is the opportunity to stop waiting, stop pleasing, stop seeking, and instead begin focusing on living your life fully. That is the real power. A life of peace, strength, and unshakable steadiness, no matter how loud the world becomes. And so, we have walked together through 12 truths that at first may sound harsh, even discouraging, but when seen deeply, are liberating. Because when you accept that no one really cares as much as you think, that is when you become free. Freedom is not doing everything to please everyone. It is living a life you can be proud of, even if no one applauds. The Stoics reminded us, thousands of years ago, that peace does not come from the crowd, does not come from recognition, but from living in alignment with reason, with virtue, with your inner principles. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "True freedom is the ability to control yourself." That is the very core of this entire journey you have just taken with me. From the perspective of someone who once struggled, who once grew weary from trying to prove myself to others, I know the price of living under the world's gaze. It leaves you hollow inside, even if many may praise you on the outside. But when you turn inward, you begin to ask, am I truly living by what I believe? Am I keeping my self-respect even when no one is watching? That is when you rediscover real strength. The lesson here is clear. Strength is not in how many people you please, but in how many times you hold steady when everything around you tries to pull you off course. Praise will fade, criticism will pass, people's eyes will turn to something else. But the character, the steadiness, and the inner fortress you build, those will remain with you for life. One last thing I want to tell you: don't wait. Don't wait for someone to believe in you before you begin. Don't wait for the world's approval before stepping forward. Don't wait for life to get easier before you change. Because the truth is, there will never be a perfect day to start. Everything you need to live a life worth being proud of is already within you. So rise and begin today. Start small, write a few lines about what you believe, keep one small promise to yourself, and take one evening to reflect on your day. These little actions will add up, piece by piece, until one day you realize you have built a foundation so strong that nothing outside can shake it. If today's message spoke to you, I invite you to share this video with someone who needs to hear these truths. Let us spread the reminder. True freedom comes from focusing on your own life, not chasing applause or fearing judgment. And if you want to continue walking this path, subscribe to Sovereign Stoic. Each video will be another step with you on the journey of building a strong, steady, and free mind. Remember this: no one cares as much as you think, and that is precisely why you must focus all your energy on building a life you are proud of. A life that does not need permission, does not need applause. A life steady, free, and full of meaning. Your life